the deal that should have killed Microsoft. In 1980, Microsoft was a fragile company, not powerful, not inevitable, not even close to safe. They had fewer than 50 employees, no operating system, no leverage, and then they signed a deal where one wrong assumption could have erased them completely. One clause, one signature, one mistake made by the most powerful corporation on Earth. If this deal had gone the way it was supposed to, Microsoft would not exist today. Instead, it quietly rewired the entire technology industry, and the company that should have died ended up taking control of everything. In 1980, IBM did not compete with other companies. IBM defined industries. They dominated mainframe computing. They dominated corporate technology. They dominated governments, banks, and global infrastructure. When IBM entered a market, competitors didn't adapt. They followed. IBM was not chasing the future. They assumed the future would come to them. So when IBM decided to enter the personal computer market, it wasn't fear that drove them, it was confidence. They believed personal computers would simply become a smaller extension of the world they already controlled. But to move quickly, IBM needed software, and that's where the problem began. IBM wanted speed, not innovation. Building an operating system internally meant delays, committees, and internal politics. So IBM did something they almost never did. They outsourced something critical. They looked outside the company, and that search led them to a small, unproven firm called Microsoft. At the time, Microsoft didn't even have an operating system. That should have ended the conversation immediately. It didn't. Microsoft said yes. They promised IBM an operating system they did not yet own, had not built, and could not guarantee. This wasn't a carefully calculated master plan. It was a gamble taken under pressure. Behind the scenes, Microsoft scrambled to find something, anything that could turn into a product. They found a small operating system owned by Seattle Computer Products. Microsoft bought it quickly, quietly, for around $50,000. That system would become MS-DOS. And now, everything was on the line. IBM believed software was secondary. To them, the real value lived in hardware, the physical machine, the factories, the logistics, the brand. Software was just an accessory, something replaceable. So IBM structured the deal accordingly. They licensed the operating system. They did not buy it. They did not own it. They did not demand exclusivity. They didn't think they needed to. This single decision would cost them control of the entire PC industry. Under the contract, IBM could ship MS-DOS with its personal computer, but Microsoft retained ownership. Microsoft could license the same operating system to anyone else. IBM saw no risk. Why would anyone choose a non-IBM computer? IBM was the computer industry. That assumption was fatal. Because while IBM was focused on protecting its dominance, Microsoft was quietly positioning itself somewhere else, not at the center of machines, but at the center of compatibility. Every company that wanted to build a machine compatible with IBM's PC needed the same software, and Microsoft was ready to sell it, again and again and again. But here's what makes this deal genuinely dangerous. Microsoft had no leverage. IBM could have canceled the agreement at any moment. They could have replaced Microsoft with another vendor. They could have rewritten the terms. They could have enforced exclusivity later, and Microsoft would have been finished.
I did quite a bit of calling to analysts and people that know you, say they know you or whatever. And they say that you've been very heavily dependent upon your relationship with IBM. I mean, the operating system is very pivotal to you. How heavily do you feel that you rely on your relationship with IBM?
Well, everyone relies on their best customer quite a bit. IBM worked with us in the creation of MS-DOS, and that became a very important product for us. And now we've worked together on this OS2 that's the latest generation operating system. It is critical to us to continue to be innovative in a way that our customers find important, and IBM's at the top of that list. Um, so, I think we do fine without them, but it would certainly be a big loss.
To make it real simple, you're saying all your eggs are not in one basket.
No, we were in this business a long time before IBM got involved. In fact, we helped them make the crucial design decisions that helped them make the original PC. And so all our eggs aren't in one basket.
For years, this risk was very real. Internally, IBM never saw Microsoft as a long-term partner. They saw them as temporary, replaceable, a shortcut. Microsoft knew this, and still, they made an even bigger bet. They decided to build their entire future on software. No factories, no hardware, no physical assets. If software failed, Microsoft failed. There was no backup plan. At the time, this was considered reckless. Power came from things you could touch. Apple was building closed systems. IBM was building massive machines. Other companies chased manufacturing, scale, and ownership. Microsoft chose none of that. They chose code, something invisible, something infinitely copyable, something that scaled without factories. Almost no one believed this could dominate an industry. Then, something unexpected happened. IBM clones appeared. Companies like Compaq began building machines compatible with IBM's PC. They were cheaper, more flexible, easier to iterate. IBM dismissed them as low-end distractions. Microsoft saw them as a multiplying force. Each clone meant another license, another deal, another dependency. And slowly, the center of gravity shifted. The PC market stopped revolving around IBM. It started revolving around MS-DOS. IBM had built the machine. Microsoft had quietly captured the standard. And once a standard is established, control becomes almost impossible to reclaim. IBM realized the mistake too late. They tried to regain control with new systems, proprietary architectures, and internal software initiatives. But ecosystems don't respond to authority. They respond to convenience. And the ecosystem had already chosen its foundation.
It's to say to ourselves, is this the day that we're being eclipsed? I mean, we lived through IBM being eclipsed. We lived through Wang being eclipsed. I grew up using digital computers. I worshiped digital. I thought, oh wow, someday I'm going to meet Ken Olsen. But by the time I met him, he wasn't really Ken Olsen anymore. We are in the customer feedback loop. We're seeing our shortcomings all the time. The support call that takes 2 hours, the opaqueness of our interface. We are very good at giving ourselves a hard time about the things that we're going to have to fix to be able to stay around and play a role.
That foundation belonged to Microsoft. By the mid-1980s, the relationship had flipped. Microsoft was no longer dependent on IBM. IBM needed Microsoft. The deal that was supposed to keep Microsoft small had made them indispensable. Here's the brutal irony. This outcome wasn't inevitable. Microsoft didn't have guaranteed leverage. They survived because IBM misunderstood where power was moving. IBM believed value stayed with the machine. Microsoft understood value would migrate to the layer everyone depended on. When Windows arrived, the battle was already decided. Microsoft wasn't just selling software. They controlled the interface between humans and computers, the invisible layer every user touched, the place where ecosystems form. IBM never recovered its dominance in personal computing. Microsoft went on to define decades of technology, not because the deal was safe, but because it was asymmetrical. One side believed it was in control. The other side positioned itself where control would eventually concentrate. This wasn't perfect foresight. It was a mix of timing, risk, and one historic miscalculation. A deal that could have erased Microsoft ended up erasing IBM's influence instead. And this is the real lesson. Industries don't collapse because companies stop innovating. They collapse because they misunderstand where power is moving. IBM protected its past. Microsoft aligned itself with the future. The deal didn't just create Microsoft, it rewired the entire technology industry. And it all began with one clause that looked insignificant, but wasn't. This is missed billions. Stories of fortunes that slipped away, not because they were weak, but because they bet on the wrong source of control. And IBM never saw it.
Well, Microsoft is celebrating its 20th year anniversary this year. And the original vision of a computer on every desk and in every home is slowly but surely coming true. We made a big bet that graphical interface would be central to this back in 1983. We basically bet our company on Microsoft Windows. And for 7 years, it was a lonely, lonely crusade. It wasn't until 1990 that the hardware became powerful enough that a really strong cycle of more volume and more applications got started. And today we have over 100 million Windows users, both in homes and in businesses.